welcome back to Court TV Live, your front row seat to justice. I'm your midday host, Julie Grant. Thank you for being with us on this Friday as we continue our coverage of Harvey Weinstein's criminal case in New York City. On the stand today, an expert for the state, Dr. Barbara Ziv, testifying about how victim behavior in sexual assault situations isn't what one might typically think. So the state is essentially getting ahead of what these factual witnesses will testify to in their accusations against Weinstein in the coming days. What I want to do now is talk about some news we just learned, an argument before the court over whether actress Rosie Perez will be allowed to testify for the state. The jury was out of the room for this, but Arsima Iyer was in the courtroom reporting that we originally thought Rosie Perez may be called as an outcry witness for her friend, actress Annabella Sciorra. But what we understand, her testimony is not to be that of someone that she promptly went and told the situation to. Her purpose is to counter what Donna Rotuno accused Annabella Sciorra of during the cross-examination, and that is of fabricating, her story. She introduced that piece of evidence, that clip from The Late Show with David Letterman. And what I want to do now is bring in Court TV's crime and justice reporter, Julia Janae, to talk a little bit about that. Julia, let's go back, please, to that moment at the cross. It was at the end of the cross, as I understand it, and Donna Rotuno played that old videotape where Annabella Sciorra is talking with David Letterman. Tell me, do you know, what did she ask her after she played that tape?
She did not ask her any questions, Julie. This really was almost a mic drop portion of the end of cross-examination. She had already gone through what the defense claims are inconsistencies or behavior that isn't something that would be what an alleged victim would act like. They brought all of those things up. They went through these dates, and then they played this clip. And after you hear Annabella Sciorra responding to David Letterman saying, you don't know essentially whether or not I'm telling the truth here on this show, here on this comedic portion of this show, that's when Donna Rotuno said she had no more questions and she sat down. There were some redirects and recrosses after that, but as far as that clip, she did not ask her any follow-up questions on that clip.
Okay, so when the prosecutor had a chance to get up and ask Annabella Sciorra if she would explain what was said during that interview, did she do that? And then what did Annabella Sciorra say, if so?
You know, there were so many things that the state had to address in its redirect that they really did not get to the video. They focused more on her neighbors and where she was in this apartment, where Harvey Weinstein came in, why her neighbors may not have heard her scream, why she may not have told other people, why she got involved with a film that had to do with Miramax after the fact. So there really wasn't a lot of attention during redirect placed on the video. It definitely didn't come immediately after this video was played.
Gotcha. Appreciate clarifying all that for us, Julia. So what is happening now? I understand the judge is thinking about whether or not to allow Rosie Perez to testify during this lunch break, but what lies ahead in terms of anything more from Dr. Barbara Ziv, and might we know who the next state's witness will be?
Well, Dr. Ziv did finish on the stand. She was released, and then another witness actually finished before lunch. He was a short witness, but he had some really important information. He was an investigator who now owns his own firm, but previously was with a very big firm, and Harvey Weinstein contacted him in August of 2017 to research some names, some issues that he felt was going to be coming out in the coming weeks and months regarding his past sexual conduct. And we, of course, know about all the articles that came out in October. So this was a witness that the state called, and he was the last one that jurors heard from before the break.
Okay, and did the defense have a chance to cross-examine him yet?
Yes, they did. He was released. He essentially, one of the biggest things that he brought out in his testimony was that Annabella Sciorra's name was on the list of names that Harvey Weinstein provided to this investigative firm, saying these are red flags, you need to call them first. Meaning there are journalists who some people in my life or my past are contacting, and you need to figure out or investigate, get up as much information as you can on these people or contact them for me. So that really was a moment that these jurors were writing down and seeing that even before Annabella Sciorra came forward, Harvey Weinstein had her on this list, that he was concerned that she may be going to journalists about negative sexual conduct in his past.
Oh, wow. So was this around the time of the big newspaper articles that dropped around, I believe it was October of 2017?
Yes, it was about 2 months before that New York Times article. So this was really a big deal as far as the timing. If these jurors know enough about that, I'm not sure if they have enough information that has come out in evidence yet, but likely the state will be making that apparent in the coming days and weeks of this trial.
Gotcha. Julia Janae, Court TV crime and justice reporter, thank you so much for your reporting. We are getting our first transcripts of Dr. Barbara Ziv's testimony from this morning. She is the state's expert in victim behavior after a sexual assault. And we're getting these reports from the courtroom from where she talks about what she calls is a rape myth. Let's take a look at some of that now. This is a presentation that we've put together for you based on the actual court transcripts. It is voiced by our professionals here at Court TV.
Doctor, have you interviewed any witnesses in this case?
No, I have not.
Have you heard the opening examination in this case?
I have not.
Have you heard any witness testimony in this case?
I have not.
Yesterday, while you were coming and a witness was going, did you meet a young woman within the Manhattan DA's office general space?
Yes.
Aside from that, have you ever met a single witness in this case?
Well, I don't know who the witnesses are, but I will assume I have not.
Have you ever evaluated anybody with regards to this case?
I have not.
Your testimony today will be based upon your general knowledge and experience in the time you have been practicing psychiatry and forensic psychiatry?
Correct.
Can you define for the jury the term that is used entitled rape trauma?
Yes, if I can add one thing. When we were talking about what a forensic psychiatrist does, I talk to what I do when I evaluate. Part of what my responsibility as a forensic psychiatrist is to act as a blind expert, which is what I am here today to do. As a blind expert, I'm not opining about any one individual or your case. I've been hired to provide information and education about sexual assault, victim behavior in sexual assault, rape trauma in sexual assault. So I apologize for not saying that before, but so that is what I'm here to do. So
I object at this point to the narrative.
Doctor,
Overruled.
can I ask you another question? Isn't it true that you were retained by the Manhattan District Attorney's Office with regard to your expertise in this case?
yes,
Are you being paid for your time or your testimony?
I am being paid for my time.
You have a contract with regard to that?
I do.
Have you billed us yet?
I have not.
Doctor, to continue then, if you could please define for the jury what is known as rape trauma.
So rape trauma is actually a legal term. It is not a psychiatric term, but it refers...
I object to finding it as a legal term.
Overruled.
So rape trauma involves the experience of sexual assault and the individual who has been sexually assaulted. Their response to that...
Are there phenomena called rape myths?
Yes.
Can you explain to the jury what that means, a rape myth?
One of the reasons that I'm allowed to testify in this court in all 50 states have laws that allow for the expert testimony.
Objection to relevance.
Overruled.
About sexual trauma and victim behavior is because people who come to assess sexual assault with preconceived notions that are usually wrong and are not informed by. I do this day in and day out. I've done this for 20, 30 years, and one of the reasons that there are statutes that allow me to do this is because people believe that they know things about sexual assaults. Those are called rape myths. Rape myths are not don't just apply to rape. They apply to all sexual assaults, and they are commonly held beliefs about perpetrators, victims, aftermath of sexual assault. Rape myths are culturally dependent. What we believe about rape in the United States in 2020 is different than what people in Japan in 1800 believed about it. It is different than what people in 2020 in Afghanistan may believe about rape or sexual assault. But what they all have in common is that most people in society believe them, and research has shown that these are not true.
Doctor, towards that end, in order to educate the jury on these rape myths, have you provided us with a PowerPoint presentation?
Yes.
Your Honor, this has been previously given to the defense as People's Exhibit number 57. At this time, we offer it into evidence.
Any objection?
I have no problem using it as demonstrative. I think that's the proper way to do it.
We are offering the PowerPoint in evidence.
Then I object.
57 is received into evidence.
Doctor, if you could draw your attention to the very large screen here in the courtroom, I believe your screen has the same image,
Yes.
so that we could go through it together. This is People's number 57 in evidence, and the title is
Rape myths. So this is the definition of rape myth. They involve misconceptions about rape and behaviors of victims of rape. These are societally determined beliefs that, while generally false, are widely persistently held. So one of the most common rape myths is that the sexual assault occurs most commonly, or rape and sexual assault is most commonly perpetrated by a stranger. This is not true. At least 85% of all sexual assaults are perpetrated by someone who is known to the victim, an acquaintance, a relative, a domestic partner. Those are the most common perpetrators of sexual assault. Only less than 15% are perpetrated by strangers.
the next one.
She asked a question. I'm not sure if this is a PowerPoint. I don't know if there's a question pending.
Overruled. Go ahead.
Another common rape myth is that victims of sexual assault resist their assailants. This is not true. The vast majority, actually, I need to be clear. When we're talking about rape myth, there are rape myths that apply to different populations. The rape myths that apply to children are different than adult females and are different than those that apply to males. So these are rape myths specific to adult females who have been sexually assaulted by a male. So it is very commonly believed and wrong that victims of sexual assault resist their assailants. Only between 20 to 40% of individuals who are in the process understand most of the research on sexual assault and behaviors in sexual assault. That occurs in the rare circumstance of an individual who is being raped by a stranger. And in some of the research includes being raped by more than one individual at a time. So these are people who are confronted with a stereotypic person in the dark alley and possibly a weapon. So even in those circumstances, most women, only between 20 to 40% of women shout out, scream, yelling. Very few people run and physically resist other than struggling is also pretty rare. And the most common type of physical resistance demonstrated by men, women who are faced with a stranger rape is kicking. So this idea that women respond to sexual assault by verbal, screaming, yelling, hitting, punching, biting, although that happens, it's rare.
If the judge allows actress Rosie Perez to testify for the state, we are told she will be the next witness called in the case. We're taking a break right now. Stay with us. We'll get you right back into our live coverage of New York versus Harvey Weinstein after this.